Before we get started, let's reintroduce you to the panel of journalists. Also making the trek down from Santa Fe, political reporter for the Santa Fe New Mexican, Steve Terrell. A familiar face, host of Public Square here on New Mexico PBS, Megan Kemerick. From the Santa Fe Reporter, editor Alexa Schertzinger is here, and working the state political beat for the Albuquerque Journal, Jim Monteleone is here. When it comes to the legislature, all our storylines tend to get woven together. In the fourth spot, the changes we see in Santa Fe: Governor Speaker of the House Ben Lujan, Senate President Pro Tem Tim Jennings, Senate Majority Whip Mary Jane Garcia. The list truly goes on. It's amazing what an election does. Still, despite new faces, Democrats control the Senate and the House while the governor is Republican. Steve, let me start with you. Does this qualify as real change, given those faces I just named and other things? Were they really that impactful that without them, everything just changes completely?
Well, hate to give a stupid answer, but I'm going to give a stupid answer.
Please.
Time will tell.
There you go. It's not so stupid.
No, that's not.
Will it be? I mean, there's obviously going to be. I think that is actually going to be some change. There's people who aren't, products of 20 years in the legislature,
right?
And so it's the biggest upheaval in legislative since sometime in the 80s, I believe.
Wow.
And there actually was one year, I think, one more representative was new
Sure.
or something. But also a lot of people went from a couple of people at least went from the House to the Senate. Joe Cervantes, Bill O'Neill. Because supposedly the House the last couple of years just wasn't that much fun. But
Were they wrong?
no. I mean, it was really, there's a lot of pressure. I've talked
Sure.
to people who from both the Senate and the House saying, yeah, it was just a lot of pressure because it's so close.
Sure.
You know, you couldn't go to the bathroom during a committee meeting or something because it was so
Right.
close. But yeah, I think there will be some change. The Senate got slightly more Republican, but the House got more. The Democrats have a comfortable lead in the House again. So
Comfort being, I'm going to do the quote thing here. Nothing's ever truly comfortable.
Yeah, it's.
Jim, let me. Sorry, Steve. Let me swing over to you on this one. Let's talk about leadership from both sides of the aisle. The Democrats have some new folks in leadership positions. Give us your take on what that portends for this next session.
Well, looking at the Senate side, the election was interesting in that, some of the governor's political allies made a push to, in some ways you can think of it almost as a coup, to go after all the Democratic leadership. Michael Sanchez, Tim Jennings as the pro tem, and Mary Jane Garcia as the party whip. They successfully got two of the three, but got two of the three defeated in Tim Jennings and Mary Jane Garcia, but they still have Michael Sanchez as the majority leader. I think the governor's allies really wanted to just shake that all up. It didn't work. And I think what you have in the Senate is a Democratic leadership that could be more hostile toward the governor than it had been in the past. I think that there's some there's got to be hurt feelings after the amount of money.
Particularly for
spent.
Mr. Sanchez.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that can change the dynamic. Looking at the House side, we're transitioning as Speaker Ben Lujan has vacated his seat and is stepping down as Speaker after a long time. It's simply going to be a different House than we recall, and how that actually turns out.
Sure.
I think as Steve mentioned, time will tell.
Sure. On Senate Democrat leadership, to follow up from Jim for a second, Megan, there's some interesting names now in leadership positions. Some who have worked their way up a little bit, but we have a freshman, a very young person in a leadership position as well. And I asked on the show a couple of weeks ago, or last week, when 2 weeks ago rather, when we got into this, what does that portend for Democrats? It seems like to be skewing younger, fresher faces. Is there a new thing evolving here?
There seems to be, and that seems not a bad idea to me in some ways. I think Tim Jennings is now the whip. Is that right?
Tim Keller. Sure.
Tim Keller. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Tim Keller
That's okay.
is the whip, and he's making a name for himself in terms of policy. Sponsors a lot of legislation, and he's very articulate about particular policies, especially about the tax expenditure budget, what kinds of incentives we're giving, really, and he's fairly even-keeled about it.
But he has a lean. But we know where he's at. He leans
he
towards
does.
a certain shore. And my question on there is Does that portend anything with how this legislature from the Democrat side is going to take care of its business? Are they going to be more activist? Are they going to be more progressive and forward-leaning on things? You see what I mean? With this
Yeah.
new set of folks coming in.
You know, it's a good question, Gene. I think it depends on each person.
Yeah.
Because they're not all the same.
That's right. I'd agree with you on
And
that.
some of them are definitely going to push harder, and some of them my sense is they tend to be better about working sort of the backroom channels and talking about deals.
Right.
And coming to consensus.
Sure.
So, but I think that for a long time, the Democratic Party in New Mexico has had kind of the same faces, and I think it behooves it to put some fresh leadership forward. Because I think some people become disenchanted with some of the old.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
For a lot of the Democrats, the older guard, they had power. Steve mentioned some things about things from the 80s and stuff, style issues, that kind of thing. What's your thought about this new sense of leadership? Where do you feel like they're going to want to take things, or does it really depend on the gamesmanship with the governor? And we'll just see how it goes.
I was actually going to say that because I think it's interesting that, when the governor came in newly elected, she was coming in against a backdrop of a very set sort of this is how things are done and this is our legislature and it's controlled by Democrats. Now the game has changed, I think, with so many new faces. The governor sort of has put her line in the sand, and it's up to the legislature to see how close or how far they want to be to that line and how much they want to challenge. I mean, I know from Santa Fe, Senator Peter Wirth has been trying for 7, 8 years to get this combined reporting bill through. Are they going to prioritize things like that really should finally happen, or are they going to try to fight ideological battles? I think.
Well, he did get that through last time, and the governor vetoed it.
Well, right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I've heard from legislators it may be more like the Gary Johnson years, where you have an activist Democratic legislature passing all sorts of stuff,
And it doesn't get passed.
and the governor vetoes big chunks of it. So.
But isn't that in the strategery of things? We talked here, last week about Governor Martinez's future plans, possibly, and the need for a record. Is just being governor no, as Gary Johnson was, does that count as a record? If you just say no.
Well,
to
that was
everything?
always an applause line for Gary Johnson when he was running for president. And I vetoed over how many millions of bills, whatever. That was always a big applause line for him. So
What's interesting
that
though
was
is
hurting the
that
primary.
in the last session, I think it was, there was some things passed she vetoed, and then she created by executive order the tax expenditure budget. I'm blanking on what the
That's
other
okay.
one was.
That's okay. I think
And
you're
it
right.
was
though.
like,
It's interesting. Yeah.
Why? Except that it puts
Well,
her
let's circle back
mark on it.
in 20 seconds or less, Jim. You made a good point here, about how things are going to be approached. Is this going to be something that even counting new Republican leadership going on here statewide? We've got Mr. Billingsley, of course. The pieces are still moving. It's going to be very tough to predict, isn't it?
I think it is going to be tough to predict. We have to see the way the Republican Party is trying to resort itself out. That being said, I think a big piece of why this leadership is a big story for 2012 is simply the fact that the state House thought this was their best chance at reclaiming a majority in the House. They really thought they had the best chance going in, and they didn't. It's a 38-32. They don't have it. Now they have to deal with 2 more years of a purely Democratic legislature.
Could be stalemate. You never know. This could be very, very interesting. We'll have to see what happens. Our third biggest story of the year, the economy. We've seen a few jobs pop up here and there, but Megan, let me start with this. The general consensus is we're not roaring back from this recession. Even if you just look at this regionally, just Texas, Arizona,
we're not.
Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico in the middle of that, it's just not happening by many percentage points of growth.
Part of it is there have been a lot of layoffs in government jobs here at local, state, and federal levels.
Right.
And that has been one of our buffers in past recessions. So that has hurt. There are some sectors that have gained. Leisure and hospitality, I believe, and healthcare and education seem to always be pretty healthy. And mining has come back. Of course, that's only certain parts of the state.
Sure.
But we're still ailing. I mean, I think the Brookings Institute did a report about this Albuquerque Metro, and boy, we were really bad in terms of growth, and we have consistent job losses.
That's right.
We're lagging.
It's really bad. I mean,
Yeah.
we were the slowest of economic growth of the nation's top 100 metro areas.
That was it,
I mean,
yeah.
that is.
And we're number 53, somewhere around there, somewhere in that.
In terms of net job growth, I think we were at the.
Oh, got you.
I
Yeah.
mean, we were at the
dead bottom.
We also have a smaller labor force now. Selena Boosie was talking to the Secretary of Workforce Solutions recently. So That's interesting. I don't know if that means people have left or they've just dropped out of looking for a job.
Right.
you
That's
know,
right.
so.
Alexa, this administration, meaning the Martinez administration, just a personal point of view, I have not really heard a jobs program either when she was running for office or since then that says, here are the 3 or 4 categories that are working. Here are the resources we're going to put into these categories. Here's also the 3 or 4 categories that are not working. Here are the resources we're going to put into these categories. Are her hands going to be tied at some point where she has to have a jobs program before this legislative session, or someone else is going to do it for her, namely Democrats?
I hope that everyone will try to do it, and I hope we'll get to some kind of consensus. The Economic Development Department actually has a jobs plan. I don't know what their progress is on that, and I can't remember. There are like 7 or 8 different initiatives and ways to achieve them where they plan to
But the bulk of those were things that we've heard from her, like taxes, regulation,
Yes, right.
JTEP, which is a Gary Johnson invention, if I'm not mistaken, JTIP or other. It's not. I didn't sense anything that was about jobs in a very clear sense. And not to push back on you on that, just the administration needs to have some more clarity here. It seems to me.
No, I think you're right,
Yeah.
actually.
Right,
And I
where is
think
it?
actually the political dispute we just went over in the legislature, the sense I get from business folks when I went to a recent meeting is like, they just want something pragmatic moving. Let's get some stuff done.
Right.
Let's not have
Right.
these little,
Right.
arguments about.
Sure, meeting with a goal, Steve. Other governors do this, say by X time we're going to have X amount of jobs and something. That's our goal. We don't even hear any goals for jobs.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Her big economic push in the last session this year was getting rid of the tax pyramiding in the construction business.
Right.
And
Taxation seems a big focus on it, like
Yeah.
Right.
making us equal somehow in terms of corporate taxation. I'm told that site selectors look at our tax structure a lot. They don't like it. That's what business people tell me. But I also wonder about, okay, then when are we going to bring up our workforce and education levels? Because
Right.
you cannot attract
Right.
businesses without that.
Exactly. Jim, many reporters are, it's not as if the governor has not been asked about this. A lot of reporters have been asking. So again, in your sense of where this administration is coming from, do you sense there's something boiling? There's something at least going to be unleashed on the public's purview here?
Not in the sense of, I think, what you might describe as a comprehensive job plan. I don't have any reason to believe that we're gonna go to the beginning of the legislative session in January and have this.
Right. This is
be
what I
civil-
want. This is what I expect.
It's not going to be
Yeah,
like
right.
that. I think we're going to get more of this kind of piecemeal dealing with this tax exemption versus this one, or that kind of policy being, like that can be cumulative to affect a statewide
Right.
job growth.
Right.
Historically, it hasn't been. But that appears to be the tack that we continue to take from we as a state,
Sure.
in the state legislature.
This is going to be a big one, 2013. It's going to be a huge one. If we don't get jobs in 2013 or even 2012, we're going to be in big, big, big trouble. Now, before we come back with this group, we'll look at the Working Classroom, an arts-based learning program that's re-engaging students and steering them towards graduation.